Welcome to Global Tax Talk. I'm Will Morris. There's undoubtedly a list, which seems to be increasing by the day, of issues keeping business tax folks and others up at night. To understand some of those issues from a slightly different perspective, I'm delighted to be joined by my colleague Astrid Bauer, who is PwC's Global TLS Risk and Quality Leader and my new best friend. Astrid, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Will.
Good.
I'm glad to be here.
It's great to have you. So Astrid, your role is currently focused on risk and quality. What, in your opinion, are the risk factors facing companies, and how are they different in different parts of the globe?
Well, Will, that's a very big question. I would say risk is very often dependent on mentality, on the framework that you're operating in. And so inevitably, in different parts of the world, there is a different risk appetite. So this is something that I see, but I also see commonalities, namely that laws take longer and longer to come into play. And of course, once they're there, they are made for a long time, whereas everyday questions change very rapidly. So this means that also the risk operation is different on a day-to-day basis than just being compliant with regard to the legal framework. This is something I see very much evolving.
Right. And, just a follow-on question from that. Do you see businesses paying more and more attention to risk and quality, or, there are some who just take the option of trying to stick their head in the sand? I mean, how do you, again, obviously it differs around the world as well. What are you seeing in relation to that?
Well, they better do take attention. So, yes, they do. They, for all credit, companies have always been pretty careful, as much as I can judge, around the world. There are always outliers, but in general, very careful about risk and quality. Good. But it's getting a more and more important standpoint in the territories, just because the field for risk and quality is wider and wider. Right. And so you need more and more specialists to actually deal with those matters.
Great. Thanks. So I'd like to now move on to get your thoughts on compliance. And now, obviously, this is clearly a subset of risk and quality. And I'm speaking to you during a week when the OECD has produced a mountain of documents. Yeah. Companies, even apart from that, are grappling with vastly increased reporting, but also increased transparency. Could you talk about what you see and hear from your counterparts and clients? What does compliance look like today for a global company?
It looks like being more on the transparent side than ever before. I live in Germany, which is a country that has data protection laws all over the place, privacy concerns all over the place. I'm personally a very private person. And years ago, I would have said there's nothing about this. But with the continuous demand towards everybody to be more transparent, this is extremely what companies have to deal with, to find their way into it, and also, mistakes they may make, get public mistakes. So this is something that they really have to focus on. And very many companies have started to say this is so complicated and so demanding. Well, we outsource certain of our obligations to those who know better than we.
Right. So how do you see the level of reporting and compliance that we've just been talking about essentially changing the trajectory, if you will, of how companies operate globally? Is it having an effect on that?
Yes, I think it has. If you always have in the back of your mind that people will know what you do, and people all over the world, and also technology nowadays is much broader than we ever had like 20 years ago, 30, 40 years ago. So what you do will be inevitably in the public domain. So this affects, of course, companies, and many have started changing already. And those who still think it's just a trend that will go over, I guess that will start very soon.
I'll find out, to be sure. Okay, so one final question. On everybody's mind right at the moment is artificial intelligence, AI. How are you seeing the impact of AI on companies, again, as an R&Q issue, as a risk and quality issue, and perhaps even more broadly than that?
Yeah. Well, there will be an issue, and there will be an effect, of course. When I think back, the telephone had an effect, the car had an effect, the iPhone had an effect, and AI, I believe, is here to stay. So it will have an effect on how do I do things, how do I train my people, how can I trust technology? So at the moment, I guess we are still in a phase in which many companies are still at awe and say, well, I don't quite know how to deal with matters, but we will probably have to move very fast. Right. This is what we do as well. And so it's here to stay. And we, I believe, have to find the right business cases to start to use this appropriately. So to skill up our people in an appropriate way, but also to make sure that they don't feel AI will take their places. Mm. There is a way for and a place for everybody of us, and it is for us now to find.
Good. That's great. So Astrid, thank you so much for joining us. We'll look forward to getting you back again, I hope. And thank you all for watching Global Tax Talk. Tune in every week so you can be global tax ready.